The stars looked different from Proxima B. Captain James Porter stood at the observation deck of Earth's outpost, watching the final fragments of the once mighty Galactic Coalition fleet scatter across the crimson sky. Their ships, beautiful works of advanced engineering, were falling one by one to the endless wave of biomechanical horrors known simply as the Swarm. "Another sector lost, sir," reported Lieutenant Adams, her voice tight with concern. "Coalition forces are retreating from the Centauri belt." Porter nodded silently. For 3 years, he and his small crew had maintained their position at humanity's farthest observation post, following Earth's strict policy of non-interference. They watched, documented, and stayed hidden as the greatest civilization in known space crumbled before an unstoppable enemy. The Coalition, with its 15 advanced species and 10,000 years of combined technological progress, had once seemed invincible. Their ships could bend space itself, their weapons could shatter planets, and their defensive systems could stop almost any attack. Almost. "Play the latest battle footage," Porter ordered, his weathered face reflecting the blue glow of the holographic display. The images showed Coalition warships, each one a masterpiece of engineering, firing salvos of energy weapons at the approaching swarm vessels. The smaller enemy ships absorbed or adapted to each attack, their black, chitinous hulls reshaping themselves to counter whatever the Coalition threw at them. "They learned too fast," Adams observed, shaking her head. "Every new weapon, every new strategy. The Swarm just adapts and comes back stronger." Porter watched as a massive Coalition dreadnought, pride of their fleet, disappeared in a flash of green light. The Swarm had copied its own weapon systems and turned them against it. That was their true horror, not just their numbers or their strength, but their ability to take any technology used against them and make it their own. In the command center below, dozens of human observers monitored communications and sensor readings. Earth had chosen isolation when they first discovered the Coalition, deciding their civilization wasn't ready for such advanced contact. Now, Porter wondered if that choice had accidentally saved them. "Sir," called out Technical Officer Reed from his station, "Coalition Command is broadcasting on all frequencies. They're ordering a full retreat to Proxima B. All remaining forces." The news sent a chill through the room. Proxima B was the Coalition's last major stronghold, their final fortress world. If they were falling back to this position, it meant everything else was already lost. Porter moved to the tactical display, studying the movement of ships. The Coalition's retreat wasn't orderly. It was a panic. Ships of all sizes were jumping into the system, many of them damaged, some barely holding together. Behind them, like a storm of locusts, the first wave of swarm ships appeared. "How many civilians on those ships?" Porter asked quietly. "Early estimates suggest at least 3 million refugees, sir," Adams replied. "They're carrying everything they could save from their worlds." The observation post's sensors tracked the arrival of more swarm ships. Their biological-mechanical hybrid designs seemed to mock the clean, geometric shapes of Coalition vessels. Where Coalition ships were all smooth lines and elegant curves, swarm vessels looked like deep-sea creatures made of metal and nightmare. "Message from Earth Command, Captain," Reed announced. "They're asking for your assessment of the situation." Porter took a deep breath, watching another Coalition ship explode in the distance. Their technology, their weapons, their tactics, everything they'd relied on for millennia was failing them now. The Swarm adapted too quickly, learned too fast, and turned every advantage against them. "Tell them," he paused, choosing his words carefully. "Tell them we're watching the end of an era. The Coalition is about to fall, and when it does, humanity's policy of non-interference might not matter anymore. Because soon, very soon, the Swarm will come looking for us too." As if to emphasize his words, the sky above Proxima B lit up with weapons fire, a final desperate battle that everyone knew would end only one way. The Coalition's time was over. The only question was, What would humanity do when their turn came? 3 days after the fall of Proxima b, the first coalition ships appeared in Earth's solar system. They came limping through space, their once magnificent vessels scared and broken. Captain Porter watched from the bridge of the Earth Defense Ship Defender as the refugee fleet approached Mars orbit. At least 500 ships, Lieutenant Adams reported, now serving aboard Porter's new command. Most of them are civilian vessels. Their power systems are almost dead. Earth's response fleet surrounded the refugees, not in threat but in protection. For the first time in recorded history, humanity faced direct contact with the coalition. It wasn't how anyone had imagined this moment would happen. Coalition flagship is requesting permission to dock with our station, Reed announced from his communication station. Admiral Grant wants you in the meeting room, Captain. Porter found himself sitting in a room with Earth's highest military command, facing creatures he had only observed from afar until now. The coalition leaders looked worn and desperate. Admiral Grant, a stern woman with gray hair and sharp eyes, led the discussion. Your weapons are useless, the coalition's military leader, Admiral Reed, stated flatly. His translator turned his clicking speech into English. Your technology is primitive. The swarm will consume your world just as they consumed ours. Porter cleared his throat. With respect, Admiral, maybe that's exactly what we need. The room fell silent. Coalition representatives stared at him with their various alien eyes. Some had 2, others had 6. One had none at all but sensed the world through other means. Explain, Grant ordered, leaning forward. Porter stood and walked to the display screen. The swarm adapts to advanced technology. They learn it, copy it, improve it. But what about technology they consider too primitive to be a threat? He pulled up images from Earth's military archives. We still maintain weapons and systems from our previous wars. Mechanical computers, analog devices, things the coalition abandoned centuries ago. The coalition representatives muttered among themselves. One of them, a scientist named Reed, spoke up. Such basic technologies could never harm the swarm. They would be ineffective. Porter smiled. Let me demonstrate something. He pulled out an old radio transmitter, the kind that had been used in Earth's Second World War. Your ships use quantum communications, right? Complex encryption. Watch this. He turned on the radio. Immediately, the coalition members' personal devices began crackling with interference. Their advanced communication systems, designed to handle quantum-level signals, couldn't properly filter the raw radio waves. Sometimes the old ways work best, Porter said. The swarm copies advanced technology because it recognizes it as a threat. But what if we use technology so simple it's practically invisible to them? Admiral Grant nodded slowly. A sword expects to meet another sword in battle. It doesn't expect to meet a wooden club. Precisely, Porter agreed. Earth still maintains manufacturing capabilities for older technology. We have stockpiles of primitive weapons, and most importantly, we know how to use them. The coalition members began talking all at once. Their translator devices struggled to keep up. Admiral Reed raised a hand for silence. You suggest we fight the most advanced enemy in the galaxy with obsolete weapons? He asked. I suggest we fight them with weapons they won't expect, Porter corrected. Weapons they might not even recognize as weapons. And I suggest we combine them with your advanced technology in ways they won't be able to predict. Grant stood up. The coalition ships currently in our system. How many can be retrofitted with Earth technology? All of them, Porter replied. We just need to think differently about how we use what we have. The meeting room erupted in discussion again. Porter watched as hope began to replace despair in the eyes of the coalition leaders. They had come to Earth expecting to find another easy victim for the swarm. Instead, they found something else, a civilization that had never stopped thinking about different ways to fight. Captain Porter, Grant said, her voice cutting through the noise. You have 48 hours to prove this concept can work. Show us that humanity's primitive technology can hurt the swarm. Porter nodded. Yes, Mom. And I know exactly where to start. Outside the station's windows, Earth's fleet began to move. They had been preparing for alien contact for decades. Now they would show the galaxy why sometimes the old ways were the best ways. The old aircraft factory in Nevada hadn't produced planes since World War II. Now, 80 years later, its machines roared to life again. Captain Porter walked through the facility with Admiral Reed of the Coalition, watching as workers assembled propeller-driven aircraft. "These are what you call P-51 Mustangs?" Reed asked, his translator struggling with the unfamiliar terms. "They seem incredibly basic." Porter ran his hand along a freshly painted wing. "Basic is exactly what we need. Look at this." He pointed to where technicians were installing strange devices in the plane's cockpit. Coalition crystal computers sat next to old vacuum tube radios. "You're mixing our technology with yours," Reed observed. "But why?" Before Porter could answer, Lieutenant Adams rushed into the hangar. "Sir, we've got swarm scouts at the edge of the solar system. They followed the refugee fleet." "Perfect timing," Porter said. "Admiral, would you like to see why we're building these primitive machines?" They hurried to the command center, where dozens of screens showed the approaching swarm vessels. These were smaller ships, meant for scouting and gathering intelligence. The Coalition refugees had gathered in the room too, watching with worried expressions. "Launch Operation Retrograde," Porter ordered. "All test units, you are cleared for engagement." From Earth's atmosphere, 30 modified P-51 Mustangs rose into space. Their hulls were covered in Coalition energy shielding, but their weapons were purely mechanical. In the cockpits, pilots used simple targeting sights alongside alien sensor displays. "This is madness," one Coalition scientist muttered. "Those ancient machines against swarm ships." The swarm scouts detected the approaching fighters. Everyone watched as the alien ships analyzed the incoming threat. Their surface rippled, preparing to adapt to whatever advanced weapons they expected to face. "All units, weapons free," Porter commanded. "Let's show them something old." The P-51s opened fire. Instead of energy beams or plasma bolts, they fired simple metal bullets. Thousands of depleted uranium rounds, accelerated by Coalition gravitic technology, streamed toward the swarm ships. The enemy vessels didn't react in time. Their adaptive shields, designed to stop energy weapons, didn't recognize the incoming projectiles as a threat until it was too late. The bullets tore through their hulls, ripping apart biological and mechanical components alike. "Impossible," Reed whispered. But it wasn't over. The P-51s dropped clouds of metal chaff, simple strips of aluminum that confused the swarm's advanced sensors. When the enemy ships tried to return fire, their targeting systems couldn't lock through the cloud of falling metal. "That's what makes it work," Porter explained. "The swarm expects advanced weapons. Their whole strategy is based on adapting to the latest technology. But these planes, they're too simple to adapt to. You can't hack a mechanical gun. You can't reprogram metal chaff." The battle ended quickly. The swarm scouts were destroyed, their remains floating in space. Not a single P-51 was lost. Admiral Grant entered the command center, smiling for the first time in days. "Well, Captain, I'd say that's proof of concept. How quickly can we scale up production?" "The old factories are ready," Porter replied. "We've got plans to modify Sherman tanks for space combat, and we're installing vacuum tube computers in Coalition ships. The swarm won't know what hit them." Reed stepped forward. "My people, we spent 10,000 years advancing our technology. We thought that made us strong. But you humans, you kept your old weapons, your simple machines. Why?" Porter looked at the screen showing the victorious P-51s returning to Earth. "Because we learned something important in our history. Newer isn't always better. Sometimes the old ways work just fine." "The Coalition fleet will need to be modified," Grant announced. "Captain Porter, you'll oversee the retrofitting. Get as many ships ready as you can. We've bought ourselves some time, but the swarm will be back." And this time, Porter added, we'll be ready for them. Sometimes the best way forward is to take a step back. Outside, more P-51s were rolling out of the factory. Humanity's old weapons were going to war again, this time among the stars. The age of hybrid warfare had begun. The swarm never saw them coming. A fleet of modified coalition ships dropped out of faster-than-light travel near Jupiter, their hulls now covered in thick metal plates instead of energy shields. Captain Porter stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching as his unusual battle group moved into position. Main swarm fleet detected. Lieutenant Adams reported. They're moving to surround us, just as we predicted. Porter nodded. The enemy ships looked like massive black insects, their surfaces shifting and changing as they prepared to adapt to any threat. But this time, humanity had a few surprises ready. Launch the decoys, Porter ordered. Hundreds of small objects shot out from the Earth ships. They were simple metal balloons, each one covered in radar-reflecting paint. To the swarm's advanced sensors, they looked like incoming missiles or fighters. They're taking the bait, Reeve announced from his tactical station. The coalition officer had learned to trust human methods. Swarm ships are spreading out to intercept the decoys. Porter watched as the enemy formation broke apart. The swarm was used to fighting organized battles with clear targets. They didn't expect something this basic. All ships, deploy window, Porter commanded, using the old World War II code name for chaff. Clouds of aluminum strips filled space, creating a storm of radar reflections. The swarm's targeting systems, designed to track energy signatures, were completely confused. Now for the real surprise, Porter said. Launch the bombers. From behind Jupiter's largest moon emerged Earth's secret weapon. A squadron of B-17 Flying Fortress bombers, modified for space combat. Their propellers were replaced with ion engines, but their weapons were pure 1940s technology. Those ancient bombers can't possibly, a coalition observer started to say, but stopped as the battle unfolded. The B-17s flew straight through the chaff clouds, using simple optical sights to target the swarm ships. Their bomb bays opened, releasing not bombs but clusters of tungsten rods. Accelerated by gravity and momentum, the metal rods struck the swarm vessels like spears from heaven. Direct hits, Adams shouted. Their adaptive shields can't stop physical impacts. The swarm ships tried to fight back, but their advanced weapons couldn't lock onto the primitive aircraft. Every time they adapted to one threat, humans introduced something even more basic. When the swarm finally figured out how to stop the tungsten rods, Porter's fleet switched to firing grapeshot, turning space combat into something from the age of sailing ships. They're retreating, Reeve announced with amazement. The swarm is actually retreating. Porter allowed himself a small smile. They can't adapt to what they don't understand. And they don't understand why anyone would use such simple weapons. The battle continued as Earth ships chased the swarm through the Jupiter system. Old radio signals jammed their quantum communications. Mechanical computers, immune to cyber attacks, guided human ships through the chaos. Even the coalition crews were learning to appreciate the beauty of simple solutions. Captain, Adams called out, we're receiving transmissions from other coalition worlds. They're asking how we did it. They want to know how to fight back. Send them the plans, Porter ordered. Show them how to build mechanical computers. Teach them about radar jamming and chaff. Let them see that sometimes the old ways are the best ways. As the last swarm ships disappeared into deep space, Porter looked at his crew. Humans and coalition members worked side by side, using technology, both ancient and modern. They had proved that humanity's greatest strength wasn't in advancing technology, but in remembering their past. The swarm will be back, Reed warned. They'll try to adapt to these methods. Let them try, Porter replied. We've got plenty more old tricks to show them. After all, humans have been fighting wars for thousands of years. We've learned a thing or two about surviving against superior forces. The fleet regrouped, ready to take the fight to enemy territory. For the first time since the swarm appeared, the galaxy had hope, and it came not from the most advanced civilization, but from a species that never forgot its roots. Warning sirens blared through Earth's Defense Command Center. Red lights flashed as screens showed hundreds of swarm ships emerging from faster-than-light travel near Mars. This wasn't a scout force or raiding party. It was a full invasion fleet. "They're not attacking our ships," Lieutenant Adams reported, her eyes fixed on the main display. "They're releasing something into space. Millions of small objects." Captain Porter leaned forward in his command chair. After weeks of successful raids against the swarm, he had expected them to try something new. Analysis. "They appear to be some kind of computer virus," Reed answered from his station. The Coalition officer's fingers flew across his console. "The swarm is trying to hack our defense systems." Porter smiled. "Let them try." The small objects, each no bigger than a coin, spread out through space like a cloud of metallic dust. They were the most advanced cyber weapons the swarm had ever created, designed to infiltrate and control any computer system they touched. "Sir," Adams called out, "they're approaching our defense satellites." "Don't stop them," Porter ordered. "Let's show them why Earth is different." The cyber weapons reached Earth's orbital defenses. They tried to connect to the satellite systems, expecting to find advanced computers they could easily corrupt. Instead, they found something else entirely. "Vacuum tubes," Reed explained to the confused Coalition observers. "Most of Earth's critical defense systems still use vacuum tube computers. You can't hack something that doesn't have modern circuits." On the screens, they watched as the swarm's cyber attack failed completely. Their weapons couldn't interface with Earth's old technology. It was like trying to hack a wooden door. There was nothing to hack. "Now it's our turn," Porter announced. "Launch Operation Locksmith." From hidden bases on Mars came Earth's newest weapons, space fighters built to look like old F-86 Sabres, but powered by Coalition engines. They carried special electromagnetic pulse bombs, designed to fry the swarm's delicate biological mechanical systems. "The swarm is adapting," someone shouted. "They're changing their shields." "Too late," Porter said quietly. The EMP bombs detonated. Waves of electromagnetic energy washed over the swarm fleet. Their advanced shields, designed to stop energy weapons and physical projectiles, didn't recognize the simple electromagnetic pulse as a threat until it was too late. Swarm ships began to drift, their complex systems scrambled by the primitive but effective weapon. The few that remained operational tried to fight back, but they faced another surprise. "Launch the boarding parties," Porter ordered. Modified Sherman tanks, equipped with space thrusters and carrying teams of soldiers with simple projectile weapons, moved toward the disabled swarm ships. The enemy's internal defenses, like everything else they built, were too advanced for their own good. "We're receiving reports from the boarding teams," Adams announced. "The swarm's internal security systems can't target our troops. Our weapons are too basic to register on their sensors." Porter watched as humanity turned the tide of battle. The swarm had expected to find an advanced civilization relying on complex technology. Instead, they found a species that had kept one foot in its past, ready to use whatever tools got the job done. "Their remaining ships are retreating," Reed reported. "The cyber attack has failed completely. Earth's defense network is intact." In the command center, humans and Coalition members celebrated together. They had just proven that Earth wasn't just another target for the swarm. It was the graveyard where their invasion would die. "Send word to all Coalition worlds," Porter ordered. "Tell them to start building vacuum tube computers. Show them how to make simple weapons that the swarm can't adapt to. It's time to take back the galaxy." As the last swarm ships disappeared into deep space, Porter looked at the strange mix of old and new technology that filled his command center. Humanity had found its edge in this war by remembering its past. Sometimes, he thought, the best way to move forward was to remember where you came from. 3 months after the failed attack on Earth, Captain Porter stood on the bridge of his new flagship, the Remembrance. The ship looked like something from an old science fiction movie. A mix of gleaming coalition metal and riveted steel plates, with both plasma cannons and old naval guns mounted on its hull. "Status report on Operation Throwback," he asked Lieutenant Adams, who now commanded her own squadron of modified World War II fighters. "Better than we hoped," she replied, bringing up a holographic map of the galaxy. 20 coalition worlds have been liberated. Our hybrid technology is spreading faster than the swarm can adapt. The map showed green dots where freed planets now stood against the swarm. Each world had followed Earth's example, mixing old technology with new in ways that confused and defeated the enemy. "Show me the Beta 7 victory," Porter ordered. The hologram changed to show their latest battle. Earth ships fought alongside coalition vessels, all of them modified with human innovations. When the swarm tried to adapt to energy weapons, they faced clouds of simple metal bullets. When they defended against physical attacks, they were hit with crude but effective radio jamming. The coalition shipyards on Beta 7 are now producing what they call retro-tech weapons, Reed reported from his station. The coalition officer wore a mix of his people's uniform and an old-style Earth military jacket. "They've even started building their own versions of your propeller aircraft." Porter nodded with satisfaction. The coalition, once proud of their advanced technology, had learned the value of keeping things simple. Their scientists now worked alongside human engineers, finding new ways to combine old and new. "Incoming transmission from Earth Command," Adams announced. "Admiral Grant is calling." The Admiral's face appeared on the main screen. She looked tired but determined. "Captain, we've located something important. Our deep space probes found the swarm's main production facility." The room fell silent. They had been searching for this target since the war began. "Where?" Porter asked. "A system at the edge of known space. But there's a problem." Grant's image was replaced by scanned data. "The facility is massive, bigger than anything we've encountered. Our current weapons might not be enough." Porter studied the images. The swarm's production center was like a giant mechanical beehive, constantly building new ships and adapting its defenses. "Then we'll make new weapons," he said. "Or rather, we'll make old weapons in new ways. Lieutenant Adams, show them Project Thunderstrike." Adams brought up designs for their latest creation. It looked like an old B-29 Superfortress bomber, but much larger and built with coalition materials. Instead of bombs, it carried something special. "A vacuum tube quantum computer," Porter explained. "The most advanced calculating machine ever built, using technology so old the swarm won't recognize it as a threat." Grant's eyebrows rose. "Will it work?" "The test models confused their sensors completely," Reed added. "The swarm's adaptive algorithms can't process something that's both primitive and advanced at the same time. It's like trying to solve a puzzle where the pieces keep changing shape." "How soon can it be ready?" Grant asked. 2 weeks, Porter replied. "We're building them in the old Boeing factory. The workers there say it's just like the stories their grandparents told them about building planes for World War II." Grant nodded. "Get it done, Captain. The swarm is pulling back its forces, probably to defend this facility. This could be our chance to end the war." As the transmission ended, Porter looked around his bridge. Humans and coalition members worked side by side, using computers made of vacuum tubes alongside holographic displays. They had created something entirely new by remembering something very old. "Send word to all ships," he ordered. "Tell them to prepare for the biggest battle of this war. It's time to show the swarm that sometimes the best future is built on the foundations of the past." The largest fleet ever assembled dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of known space. 5,000 ships, a mix of Earth and coalition vessels, all modified with humanity's hybrid technology. At their center flew the Remembrance, Captain Porter's flagship, leading the way toward the massive swarm production facility. "Enemy count?" Porter asked, his voice steady despite the tension. "Over 10,000 swarm ships," Lieutenant Adams reported. They've surrounded their facility completely. Their defenses are stronger than anything we've seen. The swarm facility hung in space like a giant metal wasp nest, constantly producing new ships and adapting its defenses. Its surface rippled with living metal, ready to counter any attack. "Launch the first wave," Porter ordered. "Operation Old Thunder begins now." From the fleet's hangars came an incredible sight. Hundreds of modified B-29 superfortresses, each one carrying a vacuum tube quantum computer. They looked like ghosts from Earth's past, brought forward in time to save the future. "Swarm ships are moving to intercept," Reed announced. They're confused. Their sensors can't make sense of our bombers." The B-29s flew in classic World War II formation, but their old-style machine guns fired plasma bolts. When the swarm adapted to energy weapons, the gunners switched to simple lead bullets. The enemy didn't know how to counter weapons that kept changing between old and new. "Main facility is scanning our ships," Adams reported. "They're trying to analyze our technology." Porter smiled. "Let them try. Launch the quantum pulse." All the B-29s activated their vacuum tube quantum computers at once. The devices were impossible by normal physics, advanced quantum processors built with technology from the 1940s. They sent out waves of contradictory data, overwhelming the swarm's adaptive algorithms. "Their ships are losing formation," Reed shouted. "The facility's defenses are failing." The swarm's greatest strength had become their weakness. Their adaptive technology tried to make sense of weapons that were both primitive and advanced at the same time. It was like trying to solve an equation where the numbers kept changing randomly. "All ships, commence attack," Porter commanded. "Hit them with everything we've got." The combined fleet opened fire. Coalition energy beams struck alongside old naval shells. Fighter planes from every era of Earth's history, modified for space combat, swarmed through enemy formations. The swarm tried to adapt, but every time they countered one weapon, they faced something completely different. "The facility's outer shell is cracking," Adams reported. "But our ships are taking heavy damage too." Porter watched as brave pilots and crews fought their way toward the target. Humanity had bet everything on this battle. If they failed here, there would be no second chance. "Launch the final wave," he ordered. "All remaining bombers, commence run." The last group of B-29s flew straight toward the facility's core. Their bomb bays carried simple electromagnetic pulse devices powered by coalition energy cells. The swarm's defenses, focused on stopping advanced weapons, didn't recognize the primitive threat until it was too late. "Direct hits," Reed's voice rang with excitement. "The facility's core is overloading." The massive structure began to break apart. Its adaptive metal surface, confused by the mix of technologies it faced, couldn't maintain its form. The swarm ships around it started to drift, their control systems scrambled by the electromagnetic pulses. "Send the message to all coalition worlds," Porter ordered. "Tell them it's over. Tell them humanity found a way." As the facility exploded behind them, Porter looked at his crew, humans and coalition members working together, using technology both old and new. They had won not through superior advancement, but by remembering that sometimes the simplest solutions were the best ones. "The war is over," Adams said quietly. "What happens now?" Porter watched as cleanup crews began collecting swarm debris for study. "Now we rebuild, and we remember the lesson we learned here. Never throw away the old just because something new comes along. The future belongs to those who remember their past." The fleet regrouped and prepared for the journey home. Behind them, the remains of the swarm facility drifted in space, a testament to humanity's greatest victory, one not with the weapons of tomorrow, but with the wisdom of yesterday.